How much of innovation is inspired, and how much is the result of hard work? If the former is the case, management's role is limited. Get out of the way of the right people. If the latter is the case, management must take a more active role in establishing the appropriate roles and processes, setting clear goals and relevant measures, and reviewing progress at each stage. Peter Drucker, with his trademark mastery of subtlety, falls somewhere in the middle. Yes, he writes in this article, innovation is real work that can and should be managed in the same way as any other corporate function. However, this does not imply that it is the same as other business activities. Indeed, knowing rather than doing is the work of innovation. According to Drucker, the majority of innovative business ideas result from methodically analyzing 7 areas of opportunity, some of which are within specific companies or industries and others of which are in broader social or demographic trends. Astute leaders will ensure that their organizations stay focused on all 7. However, analysis can only take you so far. Once you've identified an appealing opportunity, you'll need a leap of imagination to come up with the appropriate response, what we call functional inspiration. Despite much talk these days about the entrepreneurial personality, few of the entrepreneurs I've worked with over the last 30 years had such personalities. But I've known many people who had them without being entrepreneurial, including salespeople, surgeons, journalists, scholars, and even musicians. What all successful entrepreneurs I've met have in common is a commitment to the systematic practice of innovation, not a particular personality type. Entrepreneurship is defined by its ability to innovate, whether in an existing business, a public service institution, or a new venture launched by a single person in the family kitchen. It is the process by which an entrepreneur creates new wealth-producing resources or endows existing resources with greater potential for wealth creation. Today, there is a lot of confusion about what entrepreneurship is. Some observers apply the term to all small businesses, while others apply it to all new businesses. However, in practice, many well-established businesses engage in highly successful entrepreneurship. The term then refers to a specific type of activity rather than the size or age of a business. The effort to create purposeful, focused change in an enterprise's economic or social potential is at the heart of that activity. Sources of new ideas. Of course, there are innovations that result from a stroke of genius. Most innovations, particularly successful ones, are the result of a deliberate, purposeful search for innovation opportunities, which are found only in a few situations. Within a company or industry, 4 types of opportunities exist: unexpected occurrences, inconsistencies, process needs, and industry and market changes. Outside of a company's social and intellectual environment, 3 additional sources of opportunity exist: demographic changes, changes in perception, and new knowledge. True, these sources overlap, despite their differences in risk, difficulty, and complexity, and the potential for innovation may exist in more than one area at the same time. They do, however, account for the vast majority of all innovation opportunities. 1. Surprising occurrences. Consider the most basic and straightforward source of innovation opportunity, the unexpected. IBM created the first modern accounting machine, designed for banks, in the early 1930s. However, banks did not purchase new equipment in 1933. According to a story told frequently by Thomas Watson Sr., the company's founder and long-term CEO, what saved the company was its exploitation of an unexpected success. The New York Public Library wanted to buy a machine. Unlike banks, libraries had money in those early New Deal days, and Watson sold over 100 of his otherwise unsaleable machines to libraries. After 15 years of believing that computers were only for advanced scientific work, business unexpectedly expressed interest in a machine that could do payroll. UNIVAC, the most advanced machine, rejected business applications. But, realizing that it was facing an unexpected success, IBM redesigned what was essentially UNIVAC's machine for such mundane applications as payroll, and within 5 years had become the computer industry's leader, a position it has maintained to this day. Unexpected failure may be a valuable source of innovation opportunities. The Ford Edsel is widely regarded as the greatest new car failure in automotive history. What few people seem to realize is that the Edsel's failure laid the groundwork for much of the company's subsequent success. Ford intended the Edsel, the most meticulously designed car in American automotive history at the time, to provide the company with a full product line with which to compete with General Motors. When it failed, despite all of the planning, market research, and design that had gone into it, Ford realized that something was happening in the automobile market that contradicted the fundamental assumptions that GM and everyone else had been designing and marketing cars on. The market was no longer segmented primarily by income groups. The new segmentation principle was what we now call lifestyles. The Mustang, Ford's response, gave the company a distinct personality and re-established it as an industry leader. Unexpected successes and failures are such fertile ground for innovation because most businesses dismiss, disregard, and even resent them. The German scientist who created Novocaine, the first non-addictive narcotic, around 1905 intended it to be used in major surgical procedures such as amputation. Surgeons, on the other hand, preferred total anesthesia for such procedures and continue to do so. Instead, Novocaine found an immediate audience among dentists. Its creator spent the rest of his life traveling from dental school to dental school, giving speeches that forbade dentists from misusing his noble invention in ways that he had not intended. To be sure, this is a caricature, but it captures managers' common reaction to the unexpected. It should not have happened. Corporate reporting systems reinforce this reaction by diverting attention away from unexpected possibilities. On the first page of a typical monthly or quarterly report, there is a list of problems, that is, areas where results fall short of expectations. Of course, such information is required to help prevent performance degradation. However, it also prevents the identification of new opportunities. The initial recognition of a potential opportunity usually pertains to an area in which a company performs better than budgeted. As a result, truly entrepreneurial businesses have two first pages, a problem page and an opportunity page, and managers devote equal time to each. 2. Contradictions. Alcon Laboratories was a 1960s success story because Bill Connor, the company's co-founder, took advantage of an incongruity in medical technology. Cataract surgery is the third or fourth most common surgical procedure in the world. Over the last 300 years, doctors have systematized it to the point where the only traditional step left was ligament cutting. Eye surgeons had learned to cut the ligament with complete success, but it was such a different and incompatible procedure from the rest of the operation that they dreaded it. It seemed out of place. For 50 years, doctors had known about an enzyme that could dissolve the ligament without cutting it. Connor simply added a preservative to this enzyme, extending its shelf life by a few months. The new compound was immediately accepted by eye surgeons, and Alcon found itself with a worldwide monopoly. Nestlé paid a high price for the company 15 years later. Such an inconsistency within a process's logic or rhythm is only one possibility from which innovation opportunities may emerge. Inconsistency between economic realities is another source. For example, an incongruity exists when an industry has a steadily growing market but falling profit margins, as in the steel industries of developed countries between 1950 and 1970. Mini-mills are an innovative solution. An inconsistency between expectations and outcomes can also provide opportunities for innovation. Shipbuilders and shipping companies worked hard for 50 years after the turn of the century to make ships faster and use less fuel. Nonetheless, the more successful they were at increasing speed and reducing fuel consumption, the worse the economics of ocean freighters became. The ocean freighter was dying, if not already dead, by 1950. All that was wrong was a mismatch between the industry's assumptions and its realities. The real costs came not from doing work, being at sea, but from not doing work, that is, sitting idle in port. Once managers realized where the true costs were, the innovations were obvious: the roll-on, roll-off ship and the container ship. These old technology solutions simply applied to the ocean freighter what railroads and truckers had been doing for 30 years. A shift in perspective, rather than a change in technology, completely altered the economics of ocean shipping, transforming it into one of the major growth industries of the last 20 to 30 years. 3. Process requirements. Anyone who has driven in Japan will tell you that the country lacks a modern highway system. Its roads still follow the paths laid out in the 10th century for, or by, ox carts. The system works for cars and trucks thanks to an adaptation of a reflector that has been used on American highways since the early 1930s. The reflector allows each car to see which other vehicles are approaching from any of a half-dozen different directions. This minor invention, which allows traffic to move smoothly and with few accidents, took advantage of a process need. Two innovations developed around 1890 in response to process needs gave rise to what we now call the media. One example was Otmar Mergenthaler's linotype, which allowed newspapers to be produced quickly and in large quantities. Modern advertising, invented by the first true newspaper publishers, Adolph Ochs of the New York Times, Joseph Pulitzer of the New York World, and William Randolph Hearst, was the other social innovation. Advertising enabled them to distribute news practically for free, with the profit coming from marketing. Changes in the industry and market. Managers may believe that industry structures are predetermined by God, but these structures can and frequently do change overnight. Such change opens up enormous opportunities for innovation. Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette, a brokerage firm recently acquired by the Equitable Life Assurance Society, is one of the great success stories of American business in recent decades. DL&J was founded in 1960 by three young men, all Harvard Business School graduates, who recognized that the financial industry's structure was changing as institutional investors gained dominance. These young men lacked both capital and connections. Nonetheless, within a few years, their firm had become a pioneer in the shift to negotiated commissions, as well as one of Wall Street's top performers. It was the first to be incorporated and listed on the stock exchange. Similarly, changes in industry structure have created massive opportunities for innovation for American healthcare providers. Independent surgical and psychiatric clinics, emergency rooms, and HMOs have sprouted up across the country in the last 10 or 15 years. Similar opportunities in telecommunications emerged as a result of industry upheavals, in transmission, with the emergence of MCI and Sprint in long-distance service, and in equipment, with the emergence of such companies as Rome in the manufacturing of private branch exchanges. When an industry expands rapidly, the critical figure appears to be 40% growth in 10 years or less. Its structure changes. Established businesses, focused on defending what they already have, are less likely to counterattack when a newcomer challenges them. Indeed, when market or industry structures shift, traditional industry leaders repeatedly overlook the fastest-growing market segments. New opportunities rarely fit the way the industry has traditionally approached, defined, or organized to serve the market. As a result, innovators are likely to be left alone for an extended period of time. Changes in demographics. Demographics are the most reliable outside source of innovation opportunities. Demographic events have predictable lead times. For example, everyone who will be in the American labor force by 2000 has already been born. However, because policymakers frequently ignore demographics, those who monitor and exploit them can reap significant rewards. Because they paid attention to demographics, the Japanese are ahead in robotics. Everyone in the developed world knew that there was a baby bust and an education explosion going on around 1970 or so. Roughly half or more of the young people were staying in school past high school. As a result, the number of people available for traditional blue-collar manufacturing jobs was bound to fall and become insufficient by 1990. Everyone knew this, but only the Japanese took action, giving them a 10-year lead in robotics. The same can be said for Club Mediterranean's success in the travel and resort industry. Considerable numbers of affluent and educated young adults could have emerged in Europe and the United States by 1970, according to observers. These young people were ideal customers for a new and exotic version of the hangout of their teen years, as they were not comfortable with the kind of vacations their working-class parents had enjoyed, summer weeks at Brighton or Atlantic City. Managers have long recognized the importance of demographics, but they have always assumed that population statistics change slowly. They don't in the 21st century, however. Indeed, the opportunities for innovation made possible by changes in the number of people, as well as their age distribution, education, occupations, and geographic location, are among the most rewarding and least risky of entrepreneurial endeavors. Perceptual shifts. The phrases, "the glass is half full," and "the glass is half empty," describe the same phenomenon but have very different meanings. Changing a manager's perception of a glass from half full to half empty creates enormous opportunities for innovation. For example, all factual evidence indicates that in the last 20 years, Americans' health has improved at an unprecedented rate, whether measured by newborn mortality rates, elderly survival rates, cancer incidence, other than lung cancer, cancer cure rates, or other factors. Nonetheless, the country is gripped by collective hypochondria. Never before has there been such a focus on or fear of health. Suddenly, everything appears to cause cancer, degenerative heart disease, or premature memory loss. The glass is obviously half empty. Rather than celebrating significant improvements in health, Americans appear to be emphasizing how far they remain from immortality. This point of view has created numerous opportunities for innovation, including markets for new healthcare magazines, exercise classes and jogging equipment, and a variety of health foods. In 1983, the fastest-growing new business in the United States was a manufacturer of indoor exercise equipment. A shift in perception has no effect on the facts. However, it quickly changes their meaning. It took less than 2 years for the computer to be perceived as a threat and something only big businesses would use to something people would buy to do their taxes. Economics may not always dictate such a shift. In fact, they may be irrelevant. Mood, rather than fact, determines whether people see a glass as half full or half empty, and a change in mood frequently defies quantification. However, it is not exotic. It's made of concrete. It is definable. It is testable. It can also be used to create opportunities for innovation. New information. Among history's most significant innovations, those founded on new knowledge, whether scientific, technological, or social, rank high. They are the entrepreneur's rock stars. They get all the attention and money. They are what most people mean when they talk about innovation, though not all knowledge-based innovations are important. Knowledge-based innovations differ from all others in terms of time, casualty rates, predictability, and the challenges they present to entrepreneurs. They, like most superstars, can be temperamental, capricious, and difficult to direct. They, for example, have the longest lead time of any innovation. The period between the emergence of new knowledge and its distillation into usable technology is lengthy. Then there is a lengthy period of time before this new technology appears in the marketplace in the form of products, processes, or services. Overall, the lead time is around 50 years, a figure that has not decreased significantly throughout history. Knowledge-based innovations can be temperamental, erratic, and difficult to direct. To be effective, this type of innovation usually necessitates a wide range of knowledge. Consider modern banking, one of the most powerful knowledge-based innovations. During Napoleon's reign, the Comte de Saint-Simon developed the theory of the entrepreneurial bank. That is, the purposeful use of capital to generate economic development. Despite Saint fame, Simon's it wasn't until 30 years after his death in 1825 that two of his disciples, brothers Jacob and Isaac Pereira, founded the first entrepreneurial bank, the Credit Mobilier, ushering in what we now call finance capitalism. The Pereira, on the other hand, were unaware of modern commercial banking, which emerged around the same time in England across the Channel. The Credit Mobilier failed miserably. A few years later, J.P. Morgan, an American, and Georg Siemens, a German, combined the French theory of entrepreneurial banking and the English theory of commercial banking to found the first successful modern banks, J.P. Morgan and Company. Morgan and Company in New York and Deutsche Bank in Berlin are two examples. Shibusawa Eiichi, a young Japanese, adapted Siemens' concept to his country 10 years later, laying the groundwork for Japan's modern economy. This is how knowledge-based innovation is always carried out. To use another example, the computer required 6 distinct strands of knowledge. Arithmetic in binary. In the first half of the 19th century, Charles Babbage proposed a calculating machine. Herman Hollerith invented the punch card for the 1890 census. In 1906, the Audion tube, an electronic switch, was invented. Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead developed symbolic logic between 1910 and 1913. And programming and feedback concepts derived from failed attempts to develop effective anti-aircraft guns during World War I. Despite the fact that all of the necessary information was available by 1918, the first operational digital computer did not appear until 1946. Long lead times and the need for convergence among various types of knowledge explain the peculiar rhythm of knowledge-based innovation, as well as its benefits and drawbacks. There is a lot of talk and little action during a long gestation period. Then, when all of the elements suddenly come together, there is tremendous excitement, activity, and speculation. In developed countries, for example, nearly 1,000 electric apparatus companies were founded between 1880 and 1890. Then there was the usual crash and shakeout. Only 25 people remained alive in 1914. In the early 1920s, there were 300 to 500 automobile companies in the United States. By 1960, only 4 remained. Knowledge-based innovation can be managed, despite its difficulties. A careful examination of the various types of knowledge required to make an innovation possible is required for success. J.P. Morgan and Georg Siemens both did this when they started their banking businesses. When the Wright brothers created the first operational airplane, they accomplished this. A thorough examination of the intended user's needs, and, more importantly, capabilities, is also required. Although it may appear contradictory, knowledge-based innovation is more market-dependent than any other type of innovation. The first passenger jet was designed and built by de Havilland, a British company. but it did not analyze what the market required and thus did not identify two key factors. One was configuration, or getting the right size and payload for the routes where a jet would give an airline the most advantage. The other was equally mundane. How could the airlines afford such an expensive plane? Because de Havilland failed to conduct an adequate user analysis, the commercial jet aircraft industry was taken over by two American companies, Boeing and Douglas. Innovation principles. The analysis of the sources of new opportunities is the first step in purposeful, systematic innovation. Sources will have varying degrees of importance depending on the context. Demographics, for example, may be of little concern to innovators of fundamental industrial processes such as steelmaking, despite the fact that the linotype machine became successful primarily due to a lack of skilled typesetters available to satisfy a mass market. By the same token, new knowledge may be of little use to someone developing a social instrument to meet a need created by changing demographics or tax laws. In any case, innovators must consider all potential sources of opportunity. Because innovation is both conceptual and perceptual, aspiring innovators must also look, ask, and listen. Innovative people use both the right and left sides of their brains. They analyze what the innovation must be to satisfy an opportunity. Then they go out and observe potential users to learn about their expectations, values, and needs. An innovation must be simple and focused in order to be effective. It should only do one thing, otherwise, it will confuse people. Indeed, the highest compliment an innovation can receive is when others say, "This is obvious. Why hadn't I thought of it? It's so easy." Even innovation that creates new users and markets should be directed toward a specific, clear, and carefully designed application. Effective innovations begin with small steps. They are not lofty. It could be to allow a moving vehicle to draw electric power while running along rails, as was done with the electric streetcar. Or it could be as simple as putting the same number of matches in a matchbox. It used to be 50. This simple idea enabled automatic matchbox filling, giving the Swedes a world monopoly on matches for half a century. Grandiose ideas for things that will revolutionize an industry, on the other hand, are unlikely to succeed. In fact, no one can predict whether a given innovation will become a big business or a minor success. Even if the results are modest, successful innovation strives from the start to be the standard bearer, to determine the direction of a new technology or industry, and to build a business that is, and stays, ahead of the pack. If an innovation does not aim for leadership from the start, it is unlikely to be sufficiently innovative. Above all, innovation is a labor of love rather than a stroke of genius. It necessitates knowledge. It frequently necessitates ingenuity. It also necessitates concentration. There are clearly more talented innovators than others, but their talents are concentrated in specific areas. Indeed, innovators almost never work in more than one field. Thomas Edison worked exclusively in the electrical field, despite his systematic innovative achievements. A financial innovator, such as Citibank, is unlikely to embark on healthcare innovations. Knowledge, ingenuity, and, most importantly, focus are required for innovation. There is talent, ingenuity, and knowledge in innovation, just as there is in any other endeavor. But, in the end, what innovation necessitates is hard, focused, and purposeful work. Talent, ingenuity, and knowledge are useless if diligence, persistence, and commitment are lacking. Of course, there is far more to entrepreneurship than systematic innovation, distinct entrepreneurial strategies, for example, and the principles of entrepreneurial management, which are required equally in established enterprises, public service organizations, and new ventures. However, systematic innovation is the very foundation of entrepreneurship. Like, subscribe, get notified.